one? Okay. All right.
Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2019 show. I'm your host, Don Kay. We are live from McGillivray Speedway at 30th and High School in the beautiful town of Speedway, Indiana. Tonight's show is presented, as always, by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, and SVRA. Got an interesting announcement. He's out. The Canadian Motorsports Hall of Famer Eldon Rasmussen is out of the hospital and home, where he spent about 3 weeks in the hospital, but he's home, and he said, or Diane said, if he's feeling up to it, he will be here next week. So looking forward to that. And unfortunately, Kenny and Janine Smith aren't here. I wanted to wish them a safe trip. They'll be heading south to Florida, bums. Leaving 91-degree weather for 93. That's a good point. That works out real well for me. As I have told you, and if you look at my website for information, you notice it hadn't been there. I got trouble again. So I go to Computer Overdrive, where they have the free check. They'll check your computer for no charge and tell you what it needs to be fixed. So give them a call. Number is 317-328-0766. And if you come down there, you might have to wait in line behind me. If you are a person who loves to go to the dentist, I highly recommend the Indy Dental Group. Dr. Jack Miller and Dr. Liz Lewis have probably the best practice going. Make an appointment, give them a call at 317-846-6125. And here at the McGillivrays and Speedway on the 12th of October, Saturday, the Speedway Pet Rescue and Adoption will be on the patio out here in front from 1 to 4. So if you're looking to adopt a dog or a cat or whatever they have it here Saturday, October 12th. Speedway Pet Rescue and Adoption on the patio, 1 to 4. And upcoming Friday, October the 11th, the USAC Sprint Cars will be at the Action Track in Terre Haute. And on Saturday, they will be out at the stock cars will be running on October the 5th, I should say. That's this weekend. Stock cars will be running out at Lucas Oil Raceway, and then the 11th and 12th are down at the Wabash Clash down at Terre Haute. You going there? I don't think so. I'm not. I don't have a ride. Upcoming, and I'll have tickets for these, is the, believe it or not, it's getting that time of year, the Christmas Gift and Hobby Show at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. It runs 5 days from Wednesday, November the 6th through November the 10th. I'll have tickets. Anybody interested, or grandkids or kids or somebody? I'll have tickets, so say something. You're welcome to them. And don't forget, if you want to take a ride and see why the guys and gals love driving Indy cars, go to the IndyRacingExperience.com. Find a date. They run at the Speedway. I think next Monday is about the last day. But next year they'll be out there and they go around the country. Look up a date that works for you, and in the promo box put SJ1, you get a 50% discount. I am also to say that the next to last race for the SVRA takes place the 2nd through the 6th at the 2019 U.S. Vintage National Championship at Circuit of America in Austin, Texas. If you are interested, and it's a great show, you want to go down there, take a look at it. SVRA always puts on a great show. And if you are looking to buy a vintage Indy car or sprint car or midget, and you need it restored or you want to find one, I highly recommend you go to the Grand King Shops, 8155 Clearwater, Crawfordsville Road. If they're looking for something, see what they might have, give them a call. Their number is 317-820-3959. Now, my first guest. First off, I got to read his accomplishments. It's astounding. This young man was here about a month ago, and what he has done is astounding. He just won his unprecedented 5th Silver Crown Championship. He won in 14, 15, 17, 18, and 19. He overtook one of the all-time great drivers, Jack Hewitt, a number of wins. He now has 29, first all-time. He's 22nd place finishes in the Silver Crown, also ranked first all time. He finished in the top 2 in 49 of the 103 career starts. That's 42.5%. Only one of 19 drivers to accumulate 100 or more Silver Crown starts. He's now at 103, which ties him at 17th with A.J. Fike, who I know quite well. He has 29 poles in the Silver Crown career, most all time. He's a 29 USAC Silver Crown Rookie of the Year. He's a 4-time winner of the Hoosier 100. And there's only one other guy that's done that. Some guy you may have heard of, Al Unser Sr. He's done the same. He's a 4-time winner of the Joe James Pat O'Connor Memorial at Salem. He has won 5 times in the Silver Crown at Lucas Oil Raceway in Brownsburg, tied for the most all-time with Mike Bliss and his younger brother Tanner. How'd he get in there? How'd you let him in? He's won at 12 different tracks on the Silver Crown Trail, most all-time, and he won a Silver Crown race at all but one track in this series this year. What more can I say? Please welcome Kody Swanson. That's an amazing accomplishment. You have matched and beat some of the biggest names in the business, and you've done it, and I think in some of them shorter time than it took them to do it.
It's been a really neat ride. To have been able to accomplish anything near that has been really special, and obviously enjoy racing the Silver Crown Series. And at a certain point in my career, I didn't imagine I'd make it that far, and to have been able to participate this long and to make my own little mark in history is something really neat to me.
In the last 4, 5, 6 years, the Silver Crown has picked up. I know back 8 or 9 years ago or something, they'd have 12, 14 cars. Now they're into 30, 35 cars show up.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was Rookie of the Year in 2009, and it had kind of survived a dip when they had tried the generation car and had kind of revived from that and had some other things that they had gone through. And I think our lowest total was there in that 13, 14 range at DuQuoin at one of the fairground miles. And in the time since, it has really grown, and we've had anywhere from the mid 30s at all the dirt miles, and even the pavement series has grown and continued to get new faces and better cars and teams and equipment involved. And even this last race at Eldora was our finale. We had 27 cars, and it was the highest total we've had at Eldora for the 4 Crown since 2008. So it's really been neat to enjoy the Silver Crown Series resurgence and to be able to be a part of that.
Are there a lot of young kids coming up?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of new interest in Silver Crown, and a lot of teams that had been involved for a long time that have been away from it that have come back, and like I said, a lot of young faces, whether it's drivers or teams getting started from scratch, and they've been learning a lot and kind of changing the game a little bit. As far as the dirt Silver Crown races, the way you run the half miles, you're kind of driving dirt, big dirt sprint cars now, and for a guy like me who's not as comfortable with that, you better step up or you're gonna get left behind.
How much does your overall experience help you? Can you see, if you happen to be running 3rd, 4th, 5th, can you watch the guy ahead of you and see what he's doing and be able to figure out how to get around him?
Yeah, I mean, I really try to study, as much as anybody, even that I'm one of, I guess, the older guys or with more experience now is I still try to maybe outstudy the young guys and make sure that I'm as familiar not only with my previous races and the way the track has changed, but what's happened to other people and how their cars have changed handling, so that way I'm prepared in those situations. And on the pavement races, I feel like I'm really in tune with what's going on, and including the dirt miles. And I had a pretty good run there for a few years with teamed up with Bob Hampshire and the De Palma team, where I would save my tires really early and maybe ride in 3rd or 4th and be there at the end. And it seems like everybody else caught on to that pretty quickly. And now that's the strategy has changed because even the young guys that may have burned up their tires in years past are really doing well at saving them. And so if you're going to beat them, you're going to have to do it a different way. So it's what makes it a great series to race in, is that it's always changing and there's always something to try to figure out.
Do you think that you have enough experience and you've run Silver Crown on pavement and so forth that you could in fact move up to IndyCar?
I mean, at this point, I don't know what I don't know, and it's just be something so different, and I guess I've been doing Silver Crown long enough that it's become familiar, but I like to think that I could learn new things, because at one point I hadn't done Silver Crown either, and and in some moments had been able to pick it up relatively quick. We've been to a lot of, the bigger tracks for us or the smaller tracks for IndyCar. I know IndyCar announced they're going back to Richmond, and I only got to run there once, but we've run at Iowa Speedway and a Gateway before, and a lot of those places. I think something that's so different is, even from the way you sit in the car is so different, and that's something that James Davison was really impressive as he made the jump the other direction, and did really well. Last time I talked to you, I think he had run Salem, and he came out and run Raceway Park with us, Lucas Oil Raceway. They've been the naming rights for a long time. I know it's always been Raceway Park, but I appreciate that anyone that's willing to spend money in our sport and keep the thing going, and he did really well there. And so at some point, I'd like the chance to try. Whether obviously would love the chance to try, and whether I figured it out well or not, I'd at least like to know.
I think there's some people here that would like to see you try. Get a shot at it. You never know if you can do it until you get in the car and try it.
Yeah, I think some of the things that I've already recognized are different is, downforce and the role that plays, but I've throughout my career have done some diverse things with open wheel racing, and run some wing dirt sprint cars and some wing pavement sprint cars, and I'm going to get a chance to run a downforce car, maybe without wings, but a Ford GT at the historic 24 Hours of Daytona here in November. So at least trying to prove that I'm willing to try new things, and thankful for the opportunity to do that.
There's only 10 races in the Silver Crown Series, so what do you do to fill in the blank?
Yeah, I really structure most of my season around the Silver Crown schedule, and it seems like every year we have 10 to 12 on the books, and with a couple rainouts, this year we ended up at 10 in total. Try to run some sprint car races. When we've got pavement Silver Crown races coming up, I try to run pavement sprint car races before, just to make sure I'm fresh. Same thing with dirt. I haven't run dirt in a while. Try to pick up a couple dirt sprint car races before whether we head to Terre Haute or Williams Grove or the Fairgrounds Miles. So it seems like I don't get to run as many races a year as some of the other guys, but I try to use whatever opportunities I have to my advantage, and seem to run about 40 races a year.
Do you have a full-time job, more or less?
I do. This year it's been a little bit less, but I've been working for Alton Witzig Engineering since the summer of 2013. I went in on a random Wednesday, and my wife was working there, and they needed help typing reports, and luckily I could type. And 6 years later, I'm still there, and it's been a great fit. And in the first time we met, we talked more about racing than we did construction engineering, and it's been a great relationship ever since, to be able to work whenever I can, and to be able to go either on the road racing, or this year I spent a lot of time in the race shop down with the Nolan team, and trying to not only get familiar, but to help try to make us as competitive as we could in our first year racing Silver Crown together.
Are you still typing?
Still typing, yep.
Well, that would end my career. At the end of the first day, they'd say, with 2 fingers? No, that ain't going to work. Do you understand the race car? Can you come in and say, this is the problem, we need more springs on the right front or something? Do you understand the car so that you can communicate with your engineer, or in this case, I don't know if you have an engineer, but you understand the car and can actually work on it?
Yeah, I may not be the greatest mechanic, but I can understand it, and I can understand the pavement better than the dirt. It has just been something that kind of fit me more naturally, and throughout the beginning of my career, I was fortunate that my dad was involved in racing, and that's actually how my brother and I got started, and he was a pavement guy, and so he helped us kind of understand, whether we were racing sprint cars on the West Coast, and as we got involved in pavement Silver Crown. But in the summer of 2015, I ended up kind of taking it over myself on the pavement cars. So I'm racing for the De Palma family and Bob Hampshire, obviously Hall of Famer on the dirt, whether it was in a sprint car with the wing or without, or the Silver Crown Series. But he didn't necessarily love the pavement quite like I did. And that was something that I kind of had taken over, making the calls in the shop on how we'd set up to go, and then actually kind of let me run with it at the racetrack. I just got to where I was comfortable trying to translate in my own mind what I was feeling in the race car, and rather than try to explain, okay, when I get into the corner, I feel like it gets on the right front, and then the right front goes down, and that lets the right rear turn loose, and so, all the steps that are involved, I'd kind of just try to shortcut it in my own mind, and we'd make a change either to find out if it was better or worse, and then lead us in a direction, hopefully, to improve it by the feature. So with that, I've been able just to kind of keep going down that path. And when I came to Nolan Racing this year, they were willing to let me continue with the pavement cars, and kind of go with the setups I'd learned and what I'd been able to kind of develop, even everything from the stagger we run to the shocks that we run to how much rebound we have on each corner and spring rates and everything. And we really had some good success there, and then work with them on the dirt cars as well, kind of bounce ideas off of them a little bit. They've got a lot of experience too, and been able to communicate well together and kind of do it as a team there. But that was something that I went to college, and my degree is in agriculture economics, but my first year was a mechanical engineer, and really all I wanted was to take the advanced physics, so that way when I was in the race car, I could try to translate what was happening. And in the time since, I think it's been something that's helped me out.
No doubt. And from what you're saying and what you're translating and understanding, that translates just what you need in IndyCar, is to be able to tell them what you feel in the car. I used to work for a guy who was a team owner. He also played the engineer. And before the driver ever said anything, he'd go measure the temperature in the tires. He said you can tell it off from that. And then he'd ask the driver, what are you doing? And if what he discovered and what the driver told him, they're good to go.
Well, the fun part about it is you kind of wear many hats on race day if you're trying to do both things. And so people know I've said before, my wife is my spotter on race day, but during practice, especially these pavement races, she's in the pit area, and she keeps track of the clipboard. And when I come in, I have a guy that I have him measure tire pressure, have somebody else measure our stagger, because that's so important with our bias ply tires. Somebody else runs the barometer and gives me tire temperatures. And before I'll really even decide what I think, I want to see the information, because as a driver, you can actually fool yourself into thinking that your car's too loose because you start compensating because it's really too tight. But if you can kind of keep all those thoughts in check, and then you get the tire temperatures to go with it, all of a sudden when you see the whole picture, it makes it a lot clearer on where to go from there. So those are all things that I think are really important, and it's hard to remember it all the time. So I've got a notebook or a binder that's probably 4 or 5 inches thick that I rotate whether I'm going to a new track, and I've got notes from the last 3 or 4 years and try to keep track of track speeds and temperatures and relate it all, so that hopefully, really it just comes down to making your best guess before the feature, and hopefully you guess right.
I still want to know how you let your brother Tanner tie you for the wins at Lucas Oil Raceway. How did you let him in the door like that?
Well, he had actually blown the door open, and I think he'd won 5 before I'd won 2, and that was maybe my binder was a little bit thinner, and as I get a little bit thicker, I'm able to try to catch up to him. So it's been a lot of fun, and he still impresses me, and I know I'm biased because I'm his brother, but he only runs twice a year, and he comes out and he run from the tail to second at the Carbonite Classic, because he went for Dave Steele's bonus, and put it on the pole this last time in September, and luckily I was able to hold him off, and he runs second. So he does a great job for never racing that much. He just got a lot more natural talent than I've had, and has been somebody that I hated that he didn't get to move on, because I think he really could have done it.
What does he do now out in California? Does he work? Do you have a family business that he works in?
My family has a business, but he actually works for Golden State Farm Credit. He started as a credit analyst, and he's a loan officer, and does a little bit involved with racing and does some driver coaching and stuff out there. But he does a great job and has a great career going in his own right.
Do you ever call him up, see if he can borrow a few bucks?
Yeah, sometime I borrowed him for a little bit of work. He come into town before the Silver Crown race at Raceway Park, and we were a little behind in the shop trying to get things going, and he come out and helped us. But when it got time to set it up, we had him kind of look the other way a little bit.
You said your dad was involved in racing. What did he do?
He raced primarily on pavement, really all on pavement, and at one point was the all-time winningest driver at Madera Speedway. But he did a little traveling racing. Was I think second at one point when USAC had a super modified series on the West Coast. Won a super modified championship under SMRA, and I think at Madera he had won championships in 4 different divisions. I think it was a limited modified, a super modified, Grand American, and a late model. So by the time it was all said and done, he had driven about everything on pavement and found success in all of it.
And it just rubbed off.
It was really neat. I think about the time I was 15 and getting ready to turn 16, he was racing Grand American Modified for a guy out there, and kind of cut him a deal that he'd go ahead and run the car one more year if he'd give me a chance when I turned 16 to move out of the micro sprints into a full size car, and that was really what got us kick started, and I ran took over for him and ran that modified for a year, and by the end of that year, that car owner was willing to get a roller for a pavement sprint car run the West Coast, and somebody else that my dad had raced with was willing to loan us an old engine, and that's what I got started in racing USAC pavement sprint cars.
What did your mom say when you started racing after your dad? For both you and your brother, what did she say? Enough's enough, or?
There were rules, that's for sure. Yeah. She, at one point it was kind of a tough sell because my dad was racing before they had met, so she kind of wrote it off that was his own bad decisions. So, but with my brother and I, she thought we should probably be smarter than that, and maybe we should have been, but luckily we've been getting away with it. She let us do it. But when we got started, we'd had good grades and had straight A's, and so she tried to make us toe the line the whole way, and said if you get a B, then you're done racing. So she really wanted to make sure that if we're going to do it and be committed as a family for all the hours it takes, that we were willing to be committed to, and not just try to skate by on fun. And anyway, luckily we're able to keep the bees away and keep racing.
Boy, that's impressive. I think there's a young gentleman that races the Indy Lights, Dalton Collette, that's got a degree in some kind of physics. I'm not sure what, I can't say it, I don't know what it is, and he said it's helped him with the car as well. Not that he necessarily went to school for that, but for that reason to race. But I don't know, back in the day, if you talk to a driver, so you got a college education, they'd laugh at you. Mm-hmm. College, how do you spell that? However, things are changing.
Well, yeah, and when I first started racing, it was really when Ryan Newman had burst onto the Cup scene, and the backstory was that Roger Penske found him, and he had a mechanical engineering degree, and that's what made him valuable beyond what he could do inside the race cars, that he could help make the team better. And so, with the information I had, that's what I wanted to model it after. That hopefully I could do the same thing and prove the same points and make it to the upper levels like he did. And by the time I got here, the model had changed. So,
well, it's too bad that you haven't. Another guy made it to IndyCar. Another guy who won championships and got super license to drive IndyCars never got the chance. That's Dave Darlin. Because I got to think he too would have been one heck of a good driver. Yeah,
I think so. And obviously he has been just so incredible throughout open wheel racing. Sprint cars, midgets, Silver Crown. He's been at the top of the heap for a number of decades. And the thing it's neat is that at one point in time got to visit with Ron Hemmelgarn a little bit, and he said that I don't remember if it was one of the races he had, the Super Fitness race in Toledo, that at a period of time when he owned that IndyCar team, they were able to do a test, and he said that when Dave did it, he really did a super job, but unfortunately, you know, the way the whole rest of the picture worked, they couldn't do much more than that test. But like you said, not only do you think, and I think that he'd have been great at it. Somebody who got to see him test at it and work with him thought the same.
There's a guy sitting right here that was probably the engineer on the car, Carl Wenzel, who has incidentally a 500 championship ring that he doesn't wear because the fans hang around, you know. So he kind of keeps it in hiding. But you know, there's something about the sport of racing that hooks you. I mean, I'm getting to where I should have been dead by now, but still here, still doing this and enjoy and talking to guys like you. You know, Gene Nolan has been in racing for years, and I understand when you go into his shop, you need shocks, you need springs, you need tires, you need wheels, you need engine, anything. He's got most all of it ready to go.
Oh yeah. There's you know, when I think it was a year ago, I think in October here, that I had agreed to run for them this year, and he has got so much equipment and so much good stuff, you know, from pavement Silver Crown cars, dirt, a dirt sprint car. He's obviously been involved with Little 500 for so many years. He had a couple great pavement sprint cars and V6 engines, and like I said, as you go through and you try to be competitive at the top of the sport for so long, he's got a lot of great equipment, and was fortunate this year to try to help put the puzzle, you know, in the right order and try to win some races, and luckily we were able to do just that.
Now, you've had some success at the Little 500. You've done okay.
I've been all right every once in a while.
How many times have you won it?
3 times.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah. Well, we've only run at 5, so I'm working on it.
I know there was a time when Eric Gordon, that was his whole year. He'd won that thing. What, he won it about 6 or 7 times, I think.
I believe 9. I got a long way to go for ever going to catch Eric Gordon.
I was trying to play down a little bit.
Well, he set the mark awful high, so I feel like we ought to tell it right, you know?
Oh, okay. All right. Is there anything that you would like to accomplish? Obviously, you'd like to get a shot at an IndyCar, no question, but is there anything you'd like to accomplish yet that you haven't?
I mean, I'm really fortunate that I've been able to accomplish a lot. You know, more than I ever expected or anticipated or really even deserved. So, you know, I'd love a chance to be able to move on at some point. You know, but you know, in the Silver Crown Series, and it's kind of been for a time was regarded as the top series in USAC on the way to those upper levels. I've been fortunate to have had some success and won a number of titles and races and been able to do it for a number of different teams. So, you know, something that you know I really wanted to do this year was to win a car owner title with Nolan team, not only for Gene, but he's got 4 guys that have been with him for 25 years. And, you know, this year I was fortunate to win the driving title, but we come up just short in the owners division. One of the, you know, at DuQuoin this year we had a crazy night and ended up hurting an engine in the primary car, and the backup car suffered something completely different. But the result was that couldn't race one, and Patrick Lawson let me in his car to run the feature, so I could score some points. But you know, the way the total went, since he had qualified, they went under his owner's title. So obviously, you'd love to be able to do everything and to win. You win races and championships and help the owners and everyone you can with their goals too. And you know, that's something that I wish we could have accomplished. And I don't know what the future will exactly hold. You know, and you never know which race would be your last or which win would be your last. So at this point, you know, I'm really thankful to have won a few along the way.
Yeah. Have you signed with Nolan Racing for next year yet?
You know, we were talking about it at Eldora, and so far the focus was just on trying to do everything we could to finish this year. I didn't want to get worried about next year and get distracted. And so this weekend we've got our last race coming up is the Tony Elliott Classic at Anderson Speedway on Saturday night. So that's still the focus, is to try to finish this year as strong as we can, and then I think we'll start worrying about next year.
Well, there's nothing to worry about. Somebody will want to hire you, certainly. And of course, I have to thank my friend Linda Mansfield for helping to get you because I had your number, but I don't like the bottom. That's what you got them for. They get the big bucks to chase you down, not me. So
Yeah, she's been a great part of the team and great for me to get to work with this year, and glad she gets connected. I appreciate the chance to come out and talk to everybody.
well, I'll tell you what. Yeah. To be able to sit here and say to somebody, yourself, one of the best all time, I think is neat. And the fact that you take the time to come here, I appreciate it. And people came out to see you and they appreciate it. And I want to wish you nothing but the best in the Tony Elliott Classic. And hopefully you'll sign up because Linda said, I want to work with him again. He was really good. So hope it works out for you.
Yeah, I hope so too. You know, like I say, you just never know what the future holds, and something that I want to make sure I do that I probably haven't done in the past is, you know, every year that once I agree to run for a championship, I'm all in, and whether that's not only being there on race day, but if it's Tuesday and you know we're not ready, and I feel like I can help the team by being in the shop, then that's where I am. And so that started last October once we decided that's what we were going to do, and something I want to make sure to try to do is I haven't ever really been able to take time just to try to network full steam, you know, with everyone at a level above, or to try to see what the options are. And I know it's a tough thing to break into, but I want to make sure that that I give it my best effort before I commit to run another full season the way that I did, because once I commit to it, I want to be all in and not have any doubts or worries other than just trying to do my job for the people that I'm agreed to race with.
What about you got a young kid?
I got two.
Oh, two.
I got two.
Where the hell did you find the time for that?
Well,
never mind. Doesn't take long. Okay, never mind.
But my oldest boy Trevor will be 4 at Christmas time, and my youngest Adam will be 1 here on October 17th.
You don't have a car for the older one yet, do you?
I do not. And I don't know that people ask me the quarter midget question, and I don't know that I'm going to be in any hurry for it. You know, I don't know if I'm going to steal my mom's approach, but when we were growing up, you know, Tanner and I, we played sports, and I won a state championship playing soccer and baseball, and not basketball because I wasn't very tall. I could run fast, but that just got me, you know, on the bench to help run to the water cooler for the guys that were good. But that's all right. But I mean, I think we learned a lot to, you know, how to work well with a team. You know, sometimes you see drivers come through, and it's hard to race and stuff sport to get along, just because it's the intensity is so high and emotions are high that if you can't get along good with teammates and realize that you're all in it together, you know, it's tough to advance. And so that's something I think that was important to learn, but at the same time, you know, it gave us a chance to try to be well-rounded as kids. And when the opportunity to race came along, I mean, we weren't old by any means. I think I was only 12, that you know, that it was there if you wanted it. And, but it gave you a chance to do it without having to regret your childhood, and you got to enjoy it all.
Well, we wish you the best for the next race coming up, the final of the season, I guess. And lo and behold, I will invite you back again.
All right, that sounds good.
And especially when I find out you've got a test on an Indy car.
Yeah.
See if we can work that one out. Good luck to you, and your accomplishments are amazing. Thanks for being here.
All right, you bet. Thanks for having me on.
Kody
Thanks
Swanson.
for coming out.
Thanks for coming. My next guest is here, but wait a minute.
About your ad earlier and your next guest. I'm a patient at the Indy Dental Group.
Really?
Well, I recommend it. Yeah. And
you admit it. And you admit it.
Yeah, I had to brush my teeth and floss before I came in case there was an inspection or anything. But I gotta say, it's really cool to go in and see helmets in the case and an Indy car on the ceiling. So I'm excited to stay and hear from your next guest.
All right. Thanks. Before he gets there, I want to make mention that this Saturday, over at in Brownsburg on Northfield Avenue, just north of 136 Crawfordsville Road, and the buildings on the west side of Northfield, where Bill Simpson's office is a car show. It's called Community Day. If you're interested in going out, it's a good thing. You can bring a car if you want, if you have a show car, or you can simply just go out there. They got, the shops are open. There's a silent auction going on. And the judges for the cars will be, listen to this, Al Unser Jr., Brian Barnhart, Bill Simpson, oh boy, Tommy Johnson Jr., and they're working on another one. So if you're interested, they got activities for kids, they got crafts and all kinds of things, food trucks. So you get a chance, go over to Brownsburg, just north of Crawfordsville Road on Northfield Avenue on the west side of the street. Stop by, and you'll have a good time, I can assure you. And if you're looking for insurance for your home, your car, or your commercial property, do what a lot of us have done. Call VP Insurance and talk to Mike Pardee. They're located at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. You can give them a call. Number is 317-248-0070. My next guest is a gentleman that's been involved in racing for a long time. He was known as a racing dentist when he was running with the Indy Racing League. I think he's a 4-time veteran of the Indianapolis 500. He's driven in 22 IndyCar events, and very cleverly, when he is retired and got his business going, he's back in racing as a team owner with Adam Vinatieri, and his driver is a kid by the name of Jack William Miller, which I believe is who is related, I think, to the driver. But I think one of the really interesting people in the world of motorsports. He's a dentist, he's a dental surgeon. In fact, my guy back here is going to see you tomorrow morning, actually. Or afternoon. I woke him up. I didn't mean to say that. But a really interesting guy. Please welcome the co-owner of Miller Vinatieri Racing, Dr. Jack Miller. Why can't you get racing out of your blood?
That's a tough question.
Yeah,
you know
sure
how it is. I've always said these crybabies were, oh, I'm addicted to heroin. You're not addicted to racing. That's a true addiction.
But what got you started? You won several championships on your way up to get to the IndyCar Series, but you won some championships. When did you start racing?
Well, I started late in life. I was 26 years old, and I went to at a Raceway Park, rented a Formula Ford for a Saturday school, and then I leased a car to race on the race on Sunday, and there was 38 cars, and I ended up winning. And I've had two people literally want to punch me out that day. I really didn't know the etiquette behind racing, and it took a while to learn that. And, I look back, and they were probably right, and I was wrong.
You went to dental school. How did dental school and racing work out? Obviously well, but...
Well, I was smart enough to know I had to have a backup plan if racing didn't work out, or you could get hurt the first race, or have a great career like Scott Dixon. But, starting so late in life, I just wanted something to fall back on. And I've, told this story before. I was either going to go to medical school or dental school. Got accepted to both, and I thought, if I was a dentist, I'd have more time. And I watched television for 2 days, wrote down every single commercial, and a ton of those were healthcare, and a lot of them were oral healthcare. And I thought those companies, a consumable item, have a lot of money. And I thought, hey, if I could get out, I could probably land Crest toothpaste as a sponsor. And didn't work out that way. I got out of school and I got turned down by Crest. At the time, they had their motorsports division. I talked to the wrong people, and they were decreasing. I think at the time they had the Tide car, Lava car, Crisco car, and they were starting to pull back on some of their NASCAR involvement, and they shot me down. And then I approached them 5 years later, or about 4 years later, and I finally got to the right people, and I understood, I need to go to the brand managers other than the racing division on it, and prove to them that if they sponsor me, that it's going to pay for the program before the car even hits the track. And that was key. And, I had two people call me today about wanting to run next year. They didn't have any money. And I've had so many people just complain, finding money for racing is so hard. It really isn't that hard if you really spend the time and look at it and say, okay, if I own that company, would I give this person money to go racing? And a lot of people just do it for fun and so they can do corporate entertainment. but it really has to make financial sense. And if you spend the time and study the companies before you approach them, you're probably going to have a pretty good success rate. But a lot of people don't want to put the work into it, and it's an easy excuse to say, "Well, I didn't move up because we couldn't find the funding," and that's where I'm like, "Stop! You can find the funding if you really want to do it."
And your move from SCCA, in fact, you were sponsored at SCCA, but you moved up, and a guy told me that he got in a plane in Denver, and there you were. And he said, "What are you doing there?" He said, "I'm working on a sponsorship," which I believe you sold. So you've got the program figured out.
That's the only way to make the cars go fast is money.
Yeah,
and
I've heard that.
I'm 58 now, and someday I'm going to have to grow up and retire. I'll probably never retire, but I don't want to blow everything that I've saved over the years just on a whim for my son to maybe make it to Indy cars. I mean, I've spent a lot of money, and I've gone over the amount that I said I was going to spend, but I'm not going to be stupid about it either. And there's a point where he has to go out and go find sponsorship and teach him the business, just like I had to figure it out.
You know, I can still remember you walking down pit lane at the Speedway, handing out and throwing out tubes of Crest toothpaste.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a picture on it. I think if you look up.
And that was a funny day. My sponsor said, "Go ahead and throw them up to the crowd," and it was carburation day. And I didn't really realize it, but I was walking down the pit lane throwing the toothpaste up, and the crowds were going crazy. And I would do one of these and one of these, and who could yell the most. And then finally, somebody came over from the Speedway and says, "Hey, you need to stop doing this now, because Coors company's getting upset because they're doing the pit stop contest, and you're pulling more attention down there than they're getting there." So I'll never forget that day. Well, that was a nice compliment, but we quit throwing them.
Now, obviously, you got a degree in dentistry, and you probably now have the highest rated practices in central Indiana. You've been very successful at it. And Sharon goes to see, and this a guy, his last name is kind of long, so he says that he's Dr. Herb, or what's his name? Nick. Dr. Nick, yes.
Okay, yeah.
She said, the people there are phenomenal. Who does the hiring? Does your sister do that? Does Liz do that, or do you do that?
It's kind of, with the dentist, all of us get involved with the other staff. There's just so many employees we can't, I'm not in there enough for that, but it's a very simple program. You treat every patient, they're like my mom or dad in the chair. End of story. And you look at the health care first, of the patient, then the money comes later. You don't look at the money and then do the work. And we give away a lot of dentistry. Somebody brings an 85-year-old parent in there, and ideally they need a lot of work to be done, but we're realistic on what we do. Once again, it's my mom and dad in the chair. And if the employees don't treat it like that, then they're not with us very long. I know it sounds pretty basic, but you have to treat people well, and if you do, you're successful.
And you're successful. I walk into the office when she's there. I'll walk in, and I've been there enough. They know, that I'm not there. They don't say, "Can we help you?" Because they know, oh, it's him again.
I did not pay him for these plugs.
No, that's true. Well, we took Sharon up there, and she loves it. Now, loving dentists is not it, but the people treat her well. It's great. What can you bring from the racing world and so forth into your business? Is there anything that connects?
That's a tough one. Yeah, it's very simple. Check, double check, triple check, make sure that you're doing the right thing. Or, like tomorrow, I think I've got 9 surgeries lined up. And I've never taken the wrong tooth out, and I never will, because I check 4 times, and I walk from patient to patient. I'll numb somebody, I'll come back, and I'll ask the patient to show me what tooth we're taking out. I look at the chart again, I look at the x-ray, I ask have the patient point to it, check with the assistant. And it's the same thing with the race cars. And I tell the guys, don't hand tighten a nut and then go put something else on. If you put a nut on there, finish the job, tighten it all the way, because you can hurt somebody in both businesses if you're not thorough.
How has Jack enjoyed moving from SCCA to the Road to Indy program in the USF 2000?
I have to give the Road to Indy plug, the Anderson family, A+++. The professionalism of that series is second to none. Believe it or not, I went through the entire season and said, is there anything that I'd want to change for next year if I could have magic wand, and nothing came up. The safety crew's right there, as a dad, and know how hard or how bad it feels when you crash, and sometimes you can get really hurt in these things. I never worry about it with the safety crew there. And they're on schedule all the time. They're fair, their tech is very thorough. I cannot say enough good things about it. And with Jack, he has seen the professionalism of it. They're not there to punish you. I mean, they realize it's a beginning series, and they let a lot of little things go, which I think is great. For example, our first race at Tampa St. Pete, somebody crashed and there was a pace car out, and a guy, for some reason, after the second time by, thinks they're going green and runs up over the back of my son.
I saw
under a yellow pace car. It took us out of the race, but the guy ended up breaking a couple vertebrae because we went up and then came back down. Yeah, we were discouraged, but I didn't want the guy punished because he just made a stupid mistake. It cost me about $7,000 in damage, but I still wasn't angry with the guy because I know that the next time it could be my son making a mistake. And the series is really good at that. They didn't even punish him because, he was out for the season after breaking his vertebrae. And then the very next race, another guy hits the wall. Jack goes up underneath. The guy can't turn the car and takes him out. So it was kind of like our season this year. We had some really good runs and some really bad runs and everywhere in between. It wasn't an ideal season for us, but we learned a tremendous amount. And then next year, he'll have been on all the tracks at least once that we raced this year. For next year, there won't be any new tracks, which I think is pretty big. You can get on the simulators as much as you want, but actually getting on a car and driving on like streets of Toronto, places, ovals and things like that, it definitely helps to have been there once.
The thing that bothered me a little bit is up until this year, you could go to racecontrol.indycar.com and watch the series. Now that NBC is in NBC Gold, they show the Indy Lights and IndyCar. And I didn't realize, if you go back to racecontrol.indycar.com, they show the USF 2000.
Yeah, it's Indy Live TV.
Something like, I don't know, whatever it is. I go to Race Control, whatever it is. But the thing that bothers me about it is after the lights have run and IndyCars run, they just aim the camera and walk away. So now the guys are announcing, look, here comes Jack Williams. But if you don't push a button, you don't see it. They see it because they're there. But otherwise, at least they're there and there is some coverage of it, which I think, to me, is important to get coverage so people know who they are. That's why I like to get the drivers in, which with the USF 2000 is tough, because unless their dad comes with them, they're too young to get in here. But I'd like to talk about it. I think the Road to Indy program is good. I think what Dan Anderson is doing and has done is excellent. I understand there could be a couple more 3 cars maybe in the lights. The 5,000 or the 2,000 has a pretty good car count, so that's not a problem. How long do you think it'll be? And if I'm not mistaken, somebody said you've already bought a Pro 2000 car, just in case.
Yeah, I bought one so we could start testing. We're going to still run USF 2000 next year. We're going to run 2 cars again. And I bought the Pro car just so he see how he's doing it. And I always I'm a firm believer, every time I moved up in racing, I wish I could have gone back and raced, because it feel like you're going so much slower. And we did that in go-karting with him. Even though we couldn't race a lot of the races because of his age, we had faster carts that we would go test in. So I think it definitely helped him getting back in the other one. And we've tested that a few times, and we're going to test it more. I actually, on the business end, I had 3 teams today want to lease that car for next year from me. So I'm kind of trying to decide what I'm going to do, if I'm going to lease it or just hold on to it. I don't know yet.
What does your wife think about your son racing?
You know, she's okay with it. She didn't go to all the races this year. It was just too hard for both of us to be gone, especially, you know, with my daughter being around. But, you know, it's one of those things. If anything wrong happens out there, I, of course, get blamed. You got to tell them this, you got to tell them that. I'm like, no, you go stick your hand in the tiger's mouth. I'm not going to do that. But, you know, she's supportive of it. I think she likes it.
I ran into your sister, Nancy.
Yes.
I didn't run into her. She was in the office. She come over. Are you Don? Yes. I'm Nancy. I'm Jack's brother. Oh, or sister. She says, you know, I said, you know, you've got a nice business. What's he doing? She said, he loves racing. People don't understand it. He loves it. And you do, or you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, if my son raced or not, I'd probably still own a team. But it took about 10 years of a hiatus before I really wanted to, you know, get back into owning and go through the process of finding the money, putting the right team together. And we have some really good people now. But I think for next year, we're going to be really strong. We're going to do a lot of testing over the winter. We realized where we were weak and where we need to improve, and I can't look forward to it. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it, is what I meant to say.
So during Christmas break, there's no time hanging around the house. You're testing.
Well, they ban us from, I think, December 23rd to January 2nd or 3rd.
Oh, well.
So they want us to spend time with the family.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting that you know, what you do, and I still think every once in a while, when I said to you early on, you're a dentist. Why did you come, you know, why did you go to dentist? You could have been full-time racing. He said, because I thought I could get a sponsor, and you did. And I see one on your truck. It says Blue Marble. What's that?
Oh,
I know what it is.
Yeah, it's a company my younger brother owns, and he turned down $500 million for this company, and I'm like, that would have put about $350 million in his bank account, but he's building it up to ultimately sell it for, you know, a few billion. But one of his good friends is Richard Branson, and when he started this company, he already had a lot of money in the bank, and I said, how are you going to make an alcohol company work? There's so many different ones out there. He says, yeah, but not like mine, and the size of their cans. And he just marketed the living daylights out of it, and he got in all the Virgin Airlines and the Hiltons, and he was all over the United States, and on all the cruise ships. He recently, about 6, 8, 7 months ago, signed on Disney with all the Disney cruises. So they've really built it up, and they're canning for other companies, and he's just going to move in next month to a 500,000 square foot building.
Jeez.
So
Can you buy it here?
Yeah, you can get it.
Where?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't pay
do
that
I.
much attention to it.
I see it. It's a vodka.
Yeah, it's ultra premium cocktails. They're pre-mixed, non-GMO. They're in a smaller can, and he sold the daylights out of them. And you know, unfortunately, his company can't sponsor my son because he's underage. He's not 21. And there's just an interesting fact that they serve alcohol in here. Like Taylor Swift cannot be sponsored by like Miller Lite concert of Taylor Swift because 62% of her audience is under the age of 21. There's a lot of laws about alcohol that I didn't know until he started that company.
Oh, he did sponsor. He's been involved, I think, to some degree.
He was until he found out he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So they do have water now, so we might see Blue Marble on the car next season.
Well, you know, it just fascinates me what you've done, what you've accomplished, how you've accomplished it, the things that you've done. I guess you're primarily into the business part of your dentistry, because when you're the one that goes out and finds buildings and puts the what do you call them, offices together and puts everything together. But then every Wednesday you're stuck doing surgery. And I've heard it's probably one of the best.
That's my vacation.
That's your vacation?
That's my vacation. I get to shut my cell phone off, and you know, I enjoy what I do. But I'll brag about it. I am really good at what I do. My goal is when I'm finished with a patient, let's say I'm taking out four third molars, that they don't know I'm finished. And about 90% of the patients are like, "Are we done?" I'm like, "Yeah, we've been done." So, you know, no one wants to go to the dentist. No one wants to have a shot in the mouth. I don't. I'm not a good patient, and so I've taken my experiences and said, the actual doing the procedures after doing it 26 years, you can do it with your eyes closed. The tough part is managing the patient's fear and making sure that no matter what you do, that they're having as good as time as they can have, if that makes sense.
Well, if I need some surgery, I'll come up and see you, but what would make me happy is get dancing girls or something to look at.
I think we have pretty good looking.
Oh, you do, yes. He does.
Yeah.
No question.
And everybody says, "Oh, you must hire the staff." I'm like, "No, my wife does." And they're like, "No way. Why were they having that good looking girls working around you all day long?" And I said, "Because sex sells."
Really? I'm going to make a note of that. I hadn't thought of that before. You know, how are your mom and dad?
They're good, doing good. My mom will be 85, and my dad will be 85 in June. So,
Jeez.
Yeah,
They were always nice to me. When you had your operation going, you had the little hospitality. They always come in and come on in, sit down, and we'd shoot the breeze. Nice people. Give them my regards again.
Yeah, thank you. Please. I always do. Thank you.
What is Jack's goal? Does he want to get to the Indianapolis 500?
Oh yeah, he's obsessed with this, and he'll make it. I mean, we're going to go to Europe here this month, and there's a guy named Rob Wilson that works with a lot of current Formula One drivers, and a lot of drivers, DP drivers, IndyCar drivers go to this guy, and they spend 2 days. It sounds really strange, but 2 days in a rental car at an old airstrip a couple hours north of London, Heathrow, and he drives and he gets inside these drivers' minds about weight transfer, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody swears that he's the guru, and you know, and like right now, there's 5 current Formula One drivers that go to him 3-4 times a year. And we're gonna send him over there and see if he can work his magic.
Are you going with him?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to send him. I thought, really? It's interesting. I have always been interested in your career and the things that you've done and the things that you've accomplished. And you know, you hear every once in a while, well, so and so, he'll never win the 500. No, but he was in it. You can't win it until you get in it.
Yeah.
And you qualified 4 times.
Well, it was one of those things that growing up, I really wanted to race there. And as I've said before, you know, I just got so envious, and I didn't like the way I felt. And that's when I just got mad one day and said, then do something about it. Don't listen to anybody. Set your goal. And my goal, believe it or not, was not to win the Indy 500. My goal was to get in the Indy 500. Because remember, that was in the 90s when, you know, there were a lot of people that didn't make it. So I can die a happy person knowing that I made it in that. And is this his career right here?
Yes.
That's unbelievable. I was reading this earlier. This guy is unbelievable.
Yeah. They talk about you, Kody. You're talking to Nina, but we're talking about you.
That's a resume. Yeah. Congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, when you move up to IndyCar, but you got to hurry though. There's a second guy. Yeah, there's Jack's teammate right there.
All right, we'll do it.
Yeah.
We'll see what Adam does next year, and maybe you can get to more races.
How involved is now? I made a mistake. I was hurried last night to get the email out, and I grabbed the wrong picture. And I grabbed the picture of Adam and your son. And what I wanted to was Jack's picture to say, you know, this is your son, the driver. And I got a couple of people said, "Is he coming?" No, that was my boo-boo. But how involved is he with you, and how into it is he?
He's a car fanatic. He just showed up at my house 2 days ago. He brought some tickets over for Sunday's game. And one of the Super Snake 750 horsepower truck. And my driveway is a third of a mile long, and it has burnout patches. He's really involved, and he wants to get in one of these cars, but his contract won't let him. And there was something that happened 2 years ago. He bought one of those Dodge Demons, 700 horsepower, whatever it was, and he floored it on my driveway, and he loses control and almost hit my horse fence. And I was cheering, I was begging, please hit it. I want him to hit that. And at the end, the thing snapped sideways, and it would have been the best thing I think I would have ever seen Adam do.
Does he ever come to any races?
Yeah, he was at Indy last year, and he was going to hit them all this year, but when he re-signed, you know, they don't get much time off. And with the one weekend that they do, it's usually, you know, with his family. And
Oh, yeah.
he loved it when he came to Indy this year. It was tough for him, especially in Indy. I think some of the other events will be easier for him, but he can't go from point A to point B without having everybody mob him. I mean, he doesn't mind, but it's hard to walk around because there, you know, people here in Indy know who he is and they want to talk to him.
Well, that's good.
But
He's an approachable guy.
He is very good with the mental aspect of like coaching my son, of how, remaining calm. I mean, the stress on Adam is tremendous, and stress on these drivers is the same. And it's neat watching Adam talk to Jack, and he listens more than he talks, and basically brings it out of the drivers on how they feel and when they have to, how much energy they use before they get in the car, during the car, and after the car. You know, the sleep the night before, the sleep 2 nights before. It goes through the whole process of the mental, physical part of racing, and you know, that's priceless.
That's right. And he's had a lot of mental strain the first couple of games this year, too.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And he's pulled himself out.
Yeah.
You think, what does it take? One little mistake and you're in trouble. Not his necessarily, but so many
Well, I
things
can show you. There's some people can be kind of cruel, you know, and,
Oh, no question.
they wanted to seal his coffin after those 2. And, you know, I've known him 14 years, and you know, I consider him a really good friend, and I know his personality. There was no way he was going to quit. Zero. And you know, you read everything that came through, and you know, I talked to him during that going on, and he says, you know, when I go back to the next game, I'm probably going to give a gesture to the crowd that I really shouldn't give because I'll get fined. And you know, good for him. I mean, you know, it's weird how the world builds somebody up and they get up here and then they want to tear them right down over just a couple little miss kicks. And you know, and what people don't realize, and I'm not saying this that I know by any means, but there are 2 people involved in kicking that ball. And I'm just going to stop there. Well, there's really 2 when that ball gets launched, so yeah.
Well, the third one. The thing that I thought was interesting after the game, one of the reporters asked him, "Are you going to bring in another kicker at a time?" And he said, "No, I have no." Frank Rice, the coach, said, "No, he's fine. He'll be all right."
Yeah.
It happens. I mean, if you've done it for 26 years, you're bound to have a whiff now and then.
Yeah. You look at every golfer out there.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, well. Listen, I appreciate you taking the time. I want you to get home, get plenty of rest, because Slick Willie will be in there at 3 o'clock going. You'll be ready with the saw.
Thinking margaritas at lunch. By 3, they'll be worn off.
Except for me?
You know, I can't talk to him in front of all these people for HIPAA violations.
Okay, well, don't talk to him then.
Now, I didn't really hear, Kody, do you go to Indy Dental Group? Which office? The one with the race car hanging upside down? Oh, I didn't know. When were you in there?
Last 2 or 3 years.
Okay, well, I'll have to look your chart. You know,
Just a little bit.
People go, I've been coming to you for 8 years and I've never met you. And I go, well, I'm the Grim Reaper at this point. If you're meeting me, you're probably having something done you really don't want to have done. So it's probably good I haven't seen you in there. Well, thank you for having me tonight. And I'm sorry if talk about the same stories over and over, but.
No, that's great. I asked the question, you answer the question. That's all we can do. I've always enjoyed being around you, talking to you, meeting your parents, sitting, chatting. You're out in the track practicing. We're sitting in the hospitality talking. Enjoyed all of it. And I thank you for taking the time and wish you nothing but the best with your testing and next season.
We're going to be at the Speedway for the Chris Griffith test, 19th and 20th October. Saturday, Sunday, and it'll be USF 2000, the Pro, and Indy Lights. And I think the public can get in there. It's a pretty neat deal. And then we're going to test at Lucas Oil on the 15th.
All right.
So maybe you can give my son some tips there. So
there you go. On we go. Well, thanks for your time. Best of luck to you, and I hope I'm around long enough to see your son get to the Speedway.
You will be.
Oh, yeah. Don't be so sure.
Thank you very much.
Getting old quit. Dr. Jack Miller. Thanks for coming. I have a couple of things. The next 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to have should have some spectacular guests. I've got one that he says he thinks he's going to be in town to be able to do it next week. You'll want to see. And I've got several others in the next 3 or 4 weeks coming in that are going to be bell ringers. So stay tuned. Hopefully by tomorrow I'll get my website up and running and my Facebook works. But I'm having trouble with my website for some unknown reason. But we'll be here next week, same time, same place. Until then, thanks for being, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Until next week, good night. And don't forget the Community Day over in Brownsburg at the what do you call them, offices at the, they're just north of Crawfordsville Road on the west side of the street. You'll see signs, they'll direct you into there, and there's a good thing, a car show. There's vendors and shops that are in that area will be open. Food trucks will be there, and if you have to park across the street, they're going to have police to get you across, so everything's done. So get on out there. Al Jr. will be a judge, Brian Barnhart, Bill Simpson, Tommy Johnson Jr. Be worthwhile to come on out. See you then. Stop by. From 10 until 2 on Saturday. 10 until 2. Stop in. Till next week. Good night.